Hi sweet crafty friends, it's Jarle here. I made another interactive card and this time I used the Flippin Awesome die from Fawn. It's been a while since I used it and I totally forgot how fun and easy this die is. Now let's see how this card came together. I already did some die cutting off camera. I started with the largest outside-in stitched rectangle in Bristol smooth cardstock. Then the main piece of the Flippin Awesome and that largest square piece was die cut out of ballet slippers cardstock. Then I also die cut 4 pieces of the smaller square and the rectangular piece of the Flippin Awesome add-on, both out of Bristol smooth cardstock. When I decide to do some ink blending, I always go back to my favorite Bristol Smooth. I wanted a grassy border on the bottom of my small panels, so I took out my grassy stencil. I put some temporary adhesive on the back of the different smaller panels and I pushed it onto my Make Art station. Then I put my grassy stencil on top, together with a few magnets to hold the stencil in place. I put on a green color with a blending brush and Distress Oxide in Cracked Pistachio. I did it for a total of 5 panels, so 4 square ones and then that one longer rectangular piece. You will see a close-up of that one later on. Now, of course, my panels also needed a sky. I went with a pinky one using Spun Sugar and Kitsch Flamingo Distress Oxide inks. I just lined up the same stencil, made sure it couldn't move, and then I went in with both inks. This stencil is actually super easy to line up. So with that one stencil you can get a beautiful sky and a fun grassy border. Here I splattered on some plain water and then blotted it off with a paper towel. And this gave the different panels just a little bit more interest. I also think that it has a little bit of a bokeh effect, which I really like. For my main background panel, I went in with the same colors, so the Cracked Pistachio, Spun Sugar and Kitsch Flamingo, but here I added a bit of shaded lilac as well. I started with the Kitsch Flamingo, so the darkest one of the pinks, on the one side of the panel, and then Cracked Pistachio on the other side of the panel. In between, I went in with Spun Sugar. All the colors did blend together nicely, but I wasn't actually paying that much attention to the blends between the green and the Spun Sugar, because most of this will be covered later on with the Flippin Awesome mechanism. On the top I did go in with that beautiful shaded lilac. I really like the end result of this beautiful sky. I think it really needed that lilac color, or it would have been too pinky, although I absolutely adore the color pink. I never can't seem to get enough of it. Then, of course, for the finishing touch, I splattered on some water here as well, so it would coordinate nicely with my smaller ink-blended panels. Now it's time to work on the interactive mechanism. I took that main piece of the Flippin Awesome die and I folded it on all the score lines. First I fold it away from myself and then towards myself. And if you do it like this, the mechanism will work nice and smoothly. Now here you can see the pink panels. The smaller ink-blended panels need to go on top of those. So I took out my ATG gun and I put all those smaller squares on top of the bigger squares. Now maybe I should have taken liquid glue for this, because one of my panels wasn't actually adhered as straight as I wanted it to. But that's just me. Now those 4 panels need to go on my Flippin Awesome mechanism. I adhered the first one with my ATG gun, and this one was adhered on the right side of the Flippin mechanism. Now, because I wanted it to be attached very firmly, I decided to move to a strong double-sided adhesive. So you will see that on that Flippin mechanism there are a few smaller areas, and I put some strong adhesive on all 3 of those smaller areas. With my bone folder I made sure that the glue would stay nice and put. And then I peeled off the liner paper and I attached my 3 panels on top of that glue. You will see that only the left side of the little panel is attached to the Flippin mechanism. Here you can already see it in action just a little bit. I wanted to attach the mechanism on my blended background panel, but I decided to search for a cute piece of patterned paper first. So I took out a piece of paper from the Flower Market paper pad and I trimmed it to 5.5 by 4.25. Then I took my blended panel and adhered it on top of that patterned paper piece. Now I had the exact measurement of an A2 sized card, so I could adhere down my Flippin mechanism. For that I put that same strong double-sided tape to those 2 little tab pieces, peeled off the liner paper and adhered it down onto my card. You will see that I press down firmly on the place of those 2 tabs, because that's the only place where the mechanism is attached, so you do want to press it down very firmly. I'm checking the mechanism here and it works great. The first few times you will need to guide it a little bit, but it works absolutely smoothly. I do need to attach that rectangular piece on the end of that mechanism there. So for that I used my dry adhesive again and I placed that blended piece on top. I stamped all my images with Lawn Fawn jet black ink and a few stamping blocks. I didn't have my Misty on hand and actually I just wanted to use my stamping blocks. It weren't that many images, so it went fast enough for me. I only used 2 stamp sets for my images, the Just Plain Awesome with the cute little mice and the Just Plain Awesome sentiment trails. I did color my images off camera, but as always I will list down my Copic combinations in the description box below. Before deciding on where all my images had to go, I worked on my sentiments, and it says "You're just plain awesome." I just love that. So I prepped my black cardstock with an anti-static powder tool from Tailored Expressions, and then I used Versamark ink for stamping down the sentiments. I sprinkled on some white embossing powder. Then I tapped off all the excess, and off camera I heat set it with my heat gun. I did use a sentiment banner to cut it out straight, and then I popped it up with a few foam squares onto my blended card panel. And then it was time to place down all my images. So everything on the Flippin Awesome mechanism was adhered with liquid glue. It's very important that it's adhered flat with liquid glue or with dry adhesive. Or else, if you pop it up with foam squares, the mechanism wouldn't work. So you really need to adhere it down flat. That one little mouse that's flying in its airplane, and the one that is not on the Flippin mechanism, was attached with foam squares. So the whole card has lots of dimension, which we all really love, right? Here I'm playing with it again, it's just too much fun. Then I also stamped a tiny little yay there on that last panel. but it also needs a little tab on the right, so I die cut the tab that's included in the die set out of the same piece of patterned paper, and I attached it on that little pink tab. And this tells the recipient exactly what to do. I did want to add 3 drops of Nuvo Jewel Drops in the color Pale Periwinkle. I warmed it up in my hand and then I tested it first on a scrap piece of paper. Then I placed down 3 little drops in a bit of a triangle, because that's the most eye-pleasing, I think. And this finished off my cards. I enjoyed this process so much. I really like this interactive die. Next to the reveal wheel, I think this must be my favorite. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon with another cards project. Have a great day. Bye!